War Eagle Auburn family, welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we get together and we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn family spectrum. Always heavy on the Auburn sports here, but if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. And we appreciate you watching live right now or on the replay. Whatever way you get here, we appreciate you being with us and hanging out with us for just a few minutes, even if you stay the whole time. To talk about what's going on in your minds, what you want to talk about Auburn sports and everything in between. We are here for you. My name is Kyle. I'm the editor, owner of the E2C Network. If you don't know me, and I appreciate you being here tonight. So don't be shy on this live show. It is technically a call-in show, although we've got a little special something to do tonight. We might be able to take some calls, but we will definitely be taking your questions throughout the night. As you're coming into the chat, a lot of people are already doing it. A lot of you regulars know the drill. Post where you're watching from, city, state, international. We've had international people before, and a War Eagle as well. A lot of you are already doing that, so thank you so much. So tonight, we got something special. You know, Wednesday nights is pretty much fair game, anything we can talk about, and sometimes we'll do special things. And I'm not going to sit here with Clint again tonight. I know you guys love talking to Clint and his Auburn uniform stuff. But every once in a while, I like to invite people on as guests to just hang out with me because it's much easier than me sitting here yammering at a camera for an hour. Excuse me, as I even get choked up for an hour. But I like to invite people within the Auburn family that might have something that they want to share or even just get to know them a little bit better. So I've done that tonight. I grew up with this guy for part of my adolescence in Montgomery, Alabama. He's a huge Auburn Tigers fan, and he's got a little business that we're going to let him share a little bit about tonight. But let me introduce Mr. Tyler Rowland. Tyler, War Eagle.
War Eagle. What's going on, everybody? Like Kyle said, I'm Tyler Rowland. Grew up in Montgomery. Served in the military. Now I'm in Texas, and I run a business called Cotton Top Outdoors. So what we do, we manufacture acrylic and wooden duck calls, and we've actually created the only duck call that does not freeze or stick up in extreme conditions. So just go check us out, Instagram, Cotton Top Outdoors, or Facebook, or even our website, cottontopoutdoors.com. And first and foremost, thank you so much, Kyle, for inviting me.
Of course, man. Of course, you know, we have to get back together at some point because we haven't seen each other in years.
I know. It feels like forever.
And let me just go ahead and warn you, Tyler. There's going to be some sayings and phrases that pop up in the chat window that are very weird. Don't even worry about it. There's this thing called War Dustbuster that happened on a certain live stream. It's very inappropriate. We're not going to get into why right now. We basically had to ban somebody from the chat because of some comments they were making, but now we actually made a T-shirt out of it. It says War Dustbuster on it.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to get one.
Just let your imagination run wild where you think that went. So obviously we'll let Tyler again share at the end. Oh, look at here. Neil even says War Duck Call already. There you go.
Solid. Appreciate it, Neil.
So if you guys have questions for him about his business or anything that you want to ask throughout this, that's fair game as well, but he will talk about it a little bit more at the end of all this. We got a lot of people checking in. Let's just do a little roll call here. We got Sylacauga, Tuscaloosa. We are so sorry, Michael. I am so sorry for you. Hoover as well. That's pretty much Bama territory as well. And yes, Neil, I know where you are, but pretty much 30 minutes from me right now. Let's see. I think we've got a lot of people popping in the chat. Jackson's Gap. Felix is a channel member and Booster Club member. Appreciate you being here. And AJ too. Good to see you, AJ. Thanks everybody for popping in. As you're coming in, smash that like button. Share it out on social media. Let people know that we are live so they can join in on the chat. And go ahead and post comments and questions. We'll start off with something I think that's probably a little easy. Michael asked this at the beginning of not before we even went live. And you and I talked a little bit off camera about this, Tyler. There was a certain comment. You remember Big Cat Bryant, right?
Yeah, I do.
What was your, just ignore what we're about to talk about. What was your feelings about Big Cat Bryant and his time here at Auburn?
Well, to me personally, I felt he had a lot of potential. He's big in size. He's very physical. He is very quick feet. But he didn't he was in his own way the whole time. You could see that he wanted to be, a Marlin or Derek Brown, and he had the potential to get there, but he couldn't get out of his own way.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot. Do you think that having to follow in the footsteps of Marlon Davidson, of Derek Brown. Do you think that kind of that pressure kind of got to him a little bit?
I don't necessarily think. I think it pressured a little bit, but it more or less you could see that it drove him to where he wanted to get to that point. But I do think that following in the footsteps kind of it hindered him to where it's hard to follow Marlon and it's hard to follow Derek Brown. And I mean, you coming from that year and that defense, you're expecting the same thing. And all of us know in football, you want the next guy up to be as good or better. And it's kind of hard to match that. I mean, that's 2 first-round guys.
Right. It's real. I think the saying goes, you don't want to be the guy that replaces the guy. But I've also heard it said, you don't want to be the guy that replaces the guy that replaces the guy. The point I make with that is you think Joe Montana, Steve Young, and then do you remember the guy after that?
No.
Exactly my point. You never remember the guy who replaced the guy who replaced the guy. So our defensive ends this year, I don't know how
we'll see. We'll see. I'm very, very positive in my thinking towards this year. So
I have had a lot of people actually ask that, Tyler. Like, what do you think about the defensive line this year? Like, do you have somebody you got your eye on, or just kind of a generic, I think there's more potential? What do you think?
So it's more or less the whole defense in general. I mean, we're getting a guy who he basically created the system to stop the Oregon style offense. NFL teams wanted Derek Mason to come. And so it's not necessarily the defensive line and like to identify a single unit. It's more or less the guy that's in charge of everything. Like he's going to get it right. And we might have some growing pains and they might not be as good as we've seen in the past, or it might be better. But I have more confidence in Derek Mason as our coach, as our coordinator, than anything else. And I know that, he's going to get it right.
I have a lot of confidence because I think there wasn't a lot of other hires out there that made more sense than Derek Mason at the time. Although I'm a big proponent of longevity and not cohesion, that's not the right word, but keeping things the same for as long as possible, especially if it's working. I get the feeling that Derek Mason probably won't be sticking around for much longer. Do you get a similar feeling?
Yeah, I do. But I mean, if at the same time, it's like, all right, he might stick around for 2, maybe 3 years. Or it could be to where he's here for a long time, as long as, Coach Harrison is.
Yeah, he could be. He could be. Felix said right here that, and this is addressing what not Marlon. Sorry, we've been talking all about these defensive linemen. Big Cat Bryant was approached, and to Big Cat's credit, he did not offer this opinion up without being prompted. And of course, the reporter knew exactly what he was hoping to get. He asked him about, did he think that you could beat anybody in the SEC being at UCF? And he was hoping to go there, and he did. And he said, well, yeah, I think we could beat people like Auburn. And then he quickly changes it and says, Ole Miss. But he was trying to be funny. It just didn't land. I would say he's not one for comedy personally. Needs to stick to his day job. What do you think it would have to happen for UCF to beat Auburn this year if they met in, let's say, a bowl game?
Oof.
I don't even know who they have.
Yeah, I don't either. I know they got T. Will, and so their defense is going to be, decent. At least, which I've been saying for years, he needs to be a D coordinator somewhere, and he just landed at UCF. They got the speed. I don't know if they have the size like we do, but they definitely did. It's not like back when we played them and lost to them a couple years ago. I know that.
Yeah. I think what Russell said here is a good way to think about it. I understand, you're not part of the team anymore, so it's fine to kind of take little shots at it. And it wasn't, nothing malicious. As things tend to do on social media, they snowball and people get bent out of shape over innocent little comments and stuff like that. I would be shocked and honestly disappointed if he didn't throw a little jab back our way.
Oh, yeah.
Because, he left for Tennessee, that didn't stick, and then decided to follow Malzahn to UCF. Now, I'll say this. I was hoping once the whole Tennessee implosion happened that Big Cat was going to come back. I don't think a lot of people wanted him back, but I did, simply for depth, leadership, because in a transition year, that is a hot commodity, is having somebody who's been here for a while and can be, at least in principle, a leader. Would you have been happy to have him back if he had decided to come back?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's a leader and he's been here before, but I knew that he wouldn't because it's not what he knows.
Yeah.
When he made the decision to go down with Malzahn, I knew that, it was pretty much a done deal because it's what he knows. It's who recruited him. That's why he went with Kevin Steele to Tennessee, because that's who recruited him. And he felt kind of betrayed. Because you're a kid and you're like, all right, well, I'm going to be here for 4 years. I'm going to have a coach. And then the coach, gets fired or let go or whatever you want to call it. You're like, oh, well, what do I do? I don't know this guy. I'm going to lose my spot, that kind of thing. You got a lot of questions going through your mind. And so I knew that he was going to go down and try to find somebody he knew that could get him, a start, either starting or in the rotation at number 2, or third down, defensive end or linebacker. So it didn't surprise me that he didn't come back to Auburn because he doesn't know anybody here anymore.
I saw a lot of people talking about that after the Tennessee implosion, and I was like, you left somewhere for a reason. Why would you come back to it? I mean, that to me,
Yeah.
I kind of said it a little bit similarly earlier, but I'd be disappointed in him if he did come back, because then you've hurt some feelings. I mean, you just said, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of the Coach Harsin era. And to ask to come back after you left, to me, just, it wouldn't work. It'd be something that probably wouldn't have worked out in a good sense here. Now, this is news to me. Is this true, Tyler? Do you know anything about this? Did Trevon Reed get
Yeah, he did. I saw it the other day. He's going to be, I think, a player assistant, basically like a GA. I'm trying to see what exactly his role is going to be, but it's like an associate, and it's like a player director assistant. Like basically, he's going to have some form of role in the coaching staff, and I think it happened a couple of days ago, actually.
Yeah, Trevon, God love him. I mean, he had his saga. He was one of the highest touted people coming out of high school, and it just couldn't stick. He found, and I saw it this way. I don't know if everybody agrees with me. He solidified himself, obviously, when he moved to defensive back and became not the best, defensive back around, but a solid one, a reliable one. He got some looks at the NFL. He played, well, he was going to play before the XFL imploded again. But, seeing him come back, I think it's a good thing. One of the things that I wanted Coach Harsin to do was try to bring in some Auburn guys to kind of, you need that.
Yeah.
Keeping Cadillac was clutch.
Oh, yeah. That was big.
That's my boy. I've got back here a signed portrait of him. And I was a little fangirl when I got Cadillac to sign that thing for me. You knew me growing up. Little Kyle just, fangirling over Cadillac signing that. Corey says he started as a wide receiver. Yes. He started as a wide receiver and moved to defensive back. So the question, let me go back to it originally. What do you think? What do you think his role ultimately would be? Now, I know it's kind of vague, but do you think he's going to be a defensive back guy or a wide receiver guy?
So it says support staff and player development. So from what his background is, I wouldn't be surprised to see him team up with Zach Etheridge. And Zach has more time while at Houston, and in the coaching organization, like realm or whatever you want to call it, and being a coach at a D1 school. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of tag teamed with him and helped him in the player development side of the DBs, because that's where he played last.
Yeah. I think that makes the most sense. I mean, that's where you played last. That's where you were getting some professional looks at. But I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, he was known for being a wide receiver coming out of high school, that he switched back over there. And, I think I'll be honest, and I've said this here on these live streams before. I'm very concerned about wide receivers this year. How do you feel about wide receivers?
Well, I got a buddy. I don't know if you remember Mr. Britton from the church we went to, but he's a big Troy alum, and he was very high on our wide receiver coach.
Cornelius Williams, yeah.
Yeah, and so I always forget his name. But he wanted him as the OC before he took the Auburn job. And so for me, that was like, all right, this guy knows his stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm just tickled pink that we're able to have an actual wide receiver that has a history of being a wide receiver as a coach and not just 1 year of experience. Like, I love Cody Burns. I love his heart. But, man, like, he hurt us sometimes with, like, just the techniques and stuff. At least that's my personal opinion.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
As much as I'm a fangirl for Carnell Williams, I am for Cody Burns as well. But I understand the sentiment of having a coach who actually played the position coaching you, and it makes the most sense. What I like about Cornelius Williams, and I think I'm trying to like do quick math in my head here, quick rankings. I think Derek Mason was probably the home run hire of Coach Harson's staff when he was putting it together. But the ones that got me the most excited, Cornelius Williams was up there because of his connections up and down the state of Alabama. Our recruiting in Alabama has not been that great over the last couple of years, understandably so. But you have to start somewhere. And while I do think recruiting right now needs to be focused, put a little bit more emphasis on outside our traditional stomping grounds, which we've already seen Coach Harsin do, I do think that at some point we have to return to the bread and butter and pulling the best out of the state. And who better to do that than Cornelius Williams, who's been at North Alabama. I forget where he was, at Jacksonville State. I think he had a stint somewhere in Birmingham. I think at Alabama State, Troy, and I think South Alabama. There was like 5 different universities up and down Alabama. You're going to tell me that man doesn't know basically every high school coach and high school program in the state?
Yeah, and he's from Birmingham too.
Right. So that is what's exciting for me, is because he's a young guy looking to kind of cut his teeth at a big-time program. He's got the connections. We don't have to focus right now on trying to win back Alabama, the state of Alabama, in recruiting, because it's not going to happen overnight. But give him time. He's got time. He's young here. Who knows what happens?
Yeah.
Mike Bobo's not going to be here forever, probably. He probably wants to be a head coach too. So who knows what could happen with him. What do you think about the Bobo hire? Hey, hold on. That is literally everybody. Everybody went,
yeah.
It's like that meme. Have you seen that movie? The girl like tries something, she's like, maybe. So let me hear it.
Yeah. He's smart.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. And he is a heck of a recruiter, especially for QBs. And I think he brought over the number 1 QB that he had at South Carolina to Auburn when he moved. But I think what I am terrified is Georgia back when he was the OC there. Is the slow pace, the Alex Green play action pass, and I don't mind having 2 back set, I formation with a tight end. Like, I don't mind it, but when it's, you put more emphasis on time of possession than you do about scoring. Is like, are we going to fall back into the Malzahn era or playing not to lose? I mean, because that was our biggest issue is, hey, you got to play to win every second and every down, not try not to lose in the second half. And
right.
So that's why I'm apprehensive. Like, he is an offensive genius and can do anything and everything with an offense he wants. He's super smart, but I'm on the fence about it.
I understand being on the fence. I think part of the problem was because we got such a huge hire at defensive coordinator. It's hard to really like get excited when you swung for the fences and got it a defensive coordinator. I can't. What were some of the names for offensive coordinator besides Bobo? Do you remember any?
I don't remember any at all.
I don't either. And I think that's kind of the thing that I don't know that there was a name that was going to be super satisfying to the Auburn family. But, I am very happy to have Bobo here. And I think that this could be like a refocusing of his career. Someone commented earlier saying he was a head coach. How did that happen? How did that work out? Not so well. There's a reason why he's here. But at some point, he has to think, I want to go back to being head coach. You don't get a taste of that and not want to go back and do it again. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. At the same time, I'm wondering if he's like, Kevin Steele was and was a head coach and was brutal. And it's like, all right, well, I want to be a coordinator for a long stint and learn as much as I can. I do want to be a head coach later on, but I want to take my time. And I'm really good at this offense coordinator stuff. So let me just like chill for a little bit. And if he's like that and he just dives in, goes 100%, instead of being like what Muschamp was that one year he was a defense coordinator. The second time he was here, it was, I'm a defense coordinator, but yet I want to look for jobs, and he's doing both. And it's like, if he's 100% in it, I'm all right.
Would you have been upset though if we didn't get Muschamp for that 1 year though? Like, would you have thought that we had failed? No? Oh, really? Okay. See, I was all on board for having Muschamp back. I knew it was going to be 1 year. And I talked to some people that convinced themselves, he's going to stay. I'm like, no, he's 1 year.
Yeah.
But I love me some Muschamp.
I do too. I do too. And I did know that it was like, all right, he's going to be 1 or 2 year guy. And I was super pumped. And like towards the end of the season, I was like, all right, trying to tell myself he's going to stay, he's going to stay, he's going to stay. And then like it happened. I was like, man, you knew this. Why'd you play yourself?
Don't kid yourself. Don't fall into the trap.
That's what it is.
All right, there's another little topic switch here, but real quick, what I'm going to do is post in the chat window. If you want to call in, there it is, the link right now. You can come alongside right here with me and Tyler if you'd like to. Don't be shy, but you don't have to. We'll just keep addressing comments and questions here as is. You click the link. You can select yes or no on if you want to show your face or not. We just ask that you behave yourself because this is a live show. Don't make me have to like delete you in the live. No war dustbusters here tonight, okay? No war dustbusters. But there's the link if you want to call in and talk to me and Tyler. So this is the topic of the day. What do you think about a possible SEC division shuffle moving Auburn and Alabama to the SEC East? I have said my piece on this, and I will say it again. But Tyler, what do you think?
I think it's a good idea. The East is a cake right now. Put it as simple as I can. It is a cakewalk for Florida and Georgia. You already have the Auburn-Florida rivalry. You already have Auburn-Georgia. And you bring along Alabama, so there's the Iron Bowl. You have the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry as well. LSU can be a guarantee like Georgia is for both of us, speaking on both teams. Mm-hmm. But I like it. First of all, I like Texas and Oklahoma coming in. I mean, it brings more fire. It brings back Texas A&M. It brings back Texas, Arkansas. The old Southwest Conference rivalries that were before the SEC. Mm-hmm. That became how big it is. But yeah, I definitely think it's going to shake up the East, and it's going to be fun. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
I live in Georgia currently. I don't know if we addressed that pre-show, but I live in Georgia, and dealing with Georgia fans is interesting. They are so scared right now. It's the funniest thing ever watching them quake in their shoes. All right, we do have a caller. Let me bring him in. This is Felix. What's going on, Felix? Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey man, how are you doing?
I'm all right. Just working a little bit at Lowe's.
At Lowe's, man, on the job call in. Don't let us get you in trouble.
That's what I was going to say to you. No, so I've been that's the only time I really get to watch you is like at 7. I always work the night shift, so that's pretty much the time I get to see you. Or if I'm real busy, I won't be able to see. I can hear you. I'll listen to my pocket or something. But
well, good.
Other than that, man, I try my best to see you.
I would appreciate you being here whenever you can. You got a thought on the whole SEC division stuff?
I hate to even say this, but I don't even like the guy, to be honest with you. Kirk Herbstreit. I mean, but he's got a kind of a point.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thing with the tradition thing. I'm kind of with it, but then again, we are the strongest. I mean, SEC is the strongest competition out there. I mean, if you want to go big, you might want to just come and follow the pack. You know? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. You got look. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and the SEC is the best right now. I mean, like,
War Eagle, baby.
Listen, I commend Oklahoma and Texas for saying we don't care. We're tired of being in this conference with nobody who can get anywhere in life. So bring us in. Do you favor going to the East like Tyler was saying?
You know, and I actually think that might be best for Auburn, to be honest with you. I mean, because one, you know, look, I mean, yeah, you know, I love the Iron Bowl. You know, I really do. I mean, I'm passionate about that game more than anything. But I mean, we'll play them. We'll still play them. I mean, it's not like we're going to play them again.
Hey, we'll play them, man.
But, I mean, like Bo said, we ain't scared of them.
Yeah, hey, look, people were joking on Bo for that, and I'm like, shoot, I love the kids to now. And let's be honest, it wasn't even Bo that originally said it. Bo was just saying, yeah, I got my teammates back. We ain't scared of them.
Right. Okay. That's the way I took it. I mean, I didn't take it like a jab at Alabama, you know. I mean, not really. I mean, it was kind of silly the way the first kind of you know, milked for what it wasn't, but
right.
It is what it is. Man.
That's what social media does, man. It takes one thing and just blows it out of context.
Ain't no doubt.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, man. You know, all right, I appreciate you calling in.
Yeah.
All right. See you, bud.
Yeah.
All right, bye. All right, that was Felix. Felix is a Booster Club member and channel supporter. You can, if you want to know how to do all that kind of stuff, be a part of that. Links are in the description. Tyler, back on what we were talking about. You said you're in favor of Auburn and Alabama moving to the East. Do you think that the West in that scenario, meaning Oklahoma, Texas are added out there, Missouri goes over there where they belong?
Yeah.
Do you think they could compete with the East, what would be the East, better than the West can, or the East can with the West right now? I know that's kind of confusing, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it evens out more because if you look at Texas right now, Texas is kind of middle of the pack of Big 12. So you have so many teams that are not going to compete in the East right now. You move two of the top three teams every year in the West, if not the best team in Alabama every other year, or whatever, to the East, and you add a Texas, and then you add Oklahoma, who is always in the talk. They're always in the conversation with the Big 12 championship, in the college football playoff. And so it'll even it out to where you have, not only do we have more teams that were able to come up, like, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and then you got LSU, who's been there. Then you have you'll have more competition for Georgia and Florida, and even Tennessee and Kentucky, who are they're usually middle of the pack every year. And they're going to have to fight to get that fourth spot.
Yep. I look at it like this. I think the reason it's so favorable in terms of evening things out is because, you think about it this way. You now have 4 teams. I threw up a 5, but 4 teams. I'm trying to get on camera here. 4 teams on each side that would be the perennial powers, as opposed to 2 on one side and 3 or 4 in one side. So you've got Texas A&M, we can throw them in there. LSU, Oklahoma, and Texas, which will probably be the powers every year, with Mississippi State, Missouri, and Arkansas doing their thing. Probably that 4 would be more formidable than the lower 4 of the other side, being Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Kentucky, and who am I forgetting? Help me.
Tennessee.
Tennessee. So, and that's another conversation here, because you've got Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, which would be the perennial powers. You got Tennessee, who maybe someday will return to what they used to do.
Yeah.
And then you've got a still more powerful group over there where you've got 5 teams potentially that compete every year as opposed to 4.
Yeah, and then going back to what Felix said, commenting on Kurt Herbstreit about tradition. I mean, if you look at it and look at the makeup of what the West is becoming with this merger, it's really becoming the Southwest Conference in the West now, because you have 4 of the original teams that were in the Southwest Conference, minus I think TCU and SMU, with Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. And so, you know, to anybody that says like, hey, well, it's breaking tradition, in reality, SEC is going back to the tradition, and it's patting in the pockets of Texas and the Longhorn Network and ESPN and all, you know, all those. But still, I mean, it's you're really creating the old Southwest Conference in the West Division now.
So there, I get where Herbstreit's like, it's going to mess up tradition, but like you said, it brings back some old traditions. And listen, I get joked on by all our contributors here on the network about how I don't like change. I'm a traditionalist and stuff like that. But I recognize that sometimes things have to do. And I'm especially a fan if it goes back to the old way of doing things, like, you know, the old Southwest and things like that.
Yeah.
But really what you could have is almost the SEC morph into, I don't know what you'd call it, but like a mega conference of the Southwest and the Southeast. And then they play each other to decide who's the champion of the mega conference every single year. I would love that personally. Texas has more money, plenty of money. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Do you think Texas has to give up their TV channel now?
So the Longhorn Network is ran by ESPN.
Okay.
It's the same thing as the SEC Network. So it just basically, their media rights, when they stopped it, the Longhorn Network now goes up for grabs. And when then the SEC takes over the media rights, they still have it, and ESPN still does everything with it and all that. It's just who gets a cut of it.
Yeah. So do you think we'll see maybe they start doing smaller networks for each of the teams now?
I don't think so, because to be honest with you, I think the Longhorn Network kind of bombed, but it paved the way for the SEC Network and the Big Ten Network and all that. But yeah. And yeah.
Thank you, Texas Longhorns, for bombing, so we could have what we have now.
Hey, you gotta have one person that fails, you know, so you can learn from them. That's the way life is.
Can LSU, Auburn, and Bama start their own conference? We could, honestly,
probably,
but
you got to throw in A&M just so you can have that Texas money.
Yeah, that is true. So, okay, I'm glad you brought that up. In this whole conversation of expansion, realignment, stuff like that, we talked a lot on live streams like this. Who should come into the SEC? Like, if the SEC was going to look somewhere else, let's ignore that this is a reality that Texas and Oklahoma happened. Where did you think that they would go to, and why?
I don't really know, to be honest with you.
I mean, you could say Oklahoma and Texas if that's who you really thought, but like I had some other ideas.
I thought they would. I thought they would go Clemson and Georgia Tech just because of the history behind it. But I knew Clemson wasn't going to leave because Clemson runs the ACC. You know, I mean, if you think Clemson's going to come to the SEC after all that Dabo's built, like, then you might want to reevaluate that thought process.
Yes, I agree with that completely.
Yeah. But I don't think they were looking to expand. I think it was more or less like Texas and Oklahoma got fed up with how weak the Big 12 was, and they weren't getting what they wanted. And then they're like, "Hey, you know what? Let's go play with the big boys." And now it's just it's going to be a domino effect because the Big 12 is already talking to the Pac-12 for football and other sports. So.
And can I be honest? It bothers me that West Virginia is part of the Big 12. Like
it irks my nerves every time.
I literally look at the map of the Big 12 every time, and it just like I have like a twitch, you know, like every time I see West, I look over and it's like Texas, Oklahoma, okay, Iowa, that's a little weird, but West Virginia, you know, like I can't deal with that. Speaking of that, I still think. Because who knows at this point, if Texas and Oklahoma is a reality coming to LSC, who says it's still not more to come? When I would love, by the way, the idea of Georgia Tech Florida State, or even Clemson coming to the SEC for tradition, rivalries, type of situation, regional geographic stuff. This is a business, and they want a bigger market. So and I always made the case that Texas could come because it's a big enough market that two teams ain't going to really matter. I mean, it's going to only expand their reach out there. Oklahoma continues to stretch out west for them and grab more of a market. I always said that I thought West Virginia would have been a good addition simply for the market idea of it, because it's further up into the Northeast that the SEC stretches. And I don't know if you agree with this or not. I always kind of felt like West Virginia kind of fit sort of, with SEC type of, I don't know if you call it values or whatever. Any thoughts on West Virginia?
I think they're more fitting for the ACC.
Okay.
Now you got some country bumpkins like we have in the South, so they do some weird stuff with remember the rain game. But my buddy used to date a girl from West Virginia, and every third down they do the little mojo magic or whatever they do. So they have some weird traditions. But I would rather see them, and Rutgers is another one. Why are they in the Big Ten? Put both those teams in the ACC, expand it to 16, and there you go. And then, just disband the Big 12 altogether. It's just
honestly, I would much rather Penn State also go to the ACC, because I'm a big geographic guy. I think
I am too. Yeah, I am too. It's so confusing.
I know it doesn't matter really, but actually, if you add Penn State to the ACC, that makes them more competitive.
Or even Maryland.
Exactly.
Maryland's literally on the coast. What are you doing?
Yeah. So I think if you add back Maryland, you take, West Virginia, Penn State, Rutgers. It's not an Oklahoma, Texas expansion, but that's still pretty good. You're getting Penn State out of it. Then you keep the Big Ten as is minus those teams, and you expand out and you go get Iowa State. You expand out, you go get Kansas and Kansas State. You expand out, and you go get
Nebraska.
Yeah, they've already got them. But anybody else, Oklahoma State, they're just sitting out there waving in the wind.
I know. Oh yeah, I always see that's another one. I always get confused. Is Nebraska? I always think they're in the Big 12 every time.
It irks me. It's not as bad as West Virginia, but it still irks me here. Let me give a quick little plug here. I always like to mention this, and I'm glad Neil brought it up because he and I both live in similar regions. Lutzenkirchen's high school is up literally 10 minutes from me. And I was kind of sad, but I was there for his memorial and stuff, which was very touching and very moving. The amount of Auburn people that showed up for that. But they do the 5K every year in honor to raise money for their program that they have with his dad. So there you go. You can go and join in on that in East Cobb over at Lassiter High School. And they have named it Lutzy Field now, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, but I think that's the correct name for it now. Let's see here. Kind of getting a little behind in chat. I'm guessing you mean Southern Cal, so we can get revenge.
23-0 game. I was at that game. It was brutal.
I remember that one. That was
to go above Neil's Corey. So they came out on the Clemson and Florida State coming to the SEC. They actually came out and said that was false.
Yeah.
So
of course they also said this is false, that Oklahoma and Texas. Here's what you can bet. Someone has asked the question as I just knocked my microphone around, has asked the question, but who and to who? Somebody has asked the question that's got some power, but how far did it go and how serious they were? I always operate off of the assumption where there's smoke, there's fire, but to what degree?
Mm-hmm. It's probably just a little somebody playing with matches. That's all it is.
That's all it is sometimes. All right, let's see here. West Virginia, Georgia Tech, NC State. I do agree with the NC State pick because they don't have a North Carolina team. I don't see North Carolina or Duke leaving each other from the ACC, specifically for basketball. They've got the run of the show there for the most part. But I could see, similar to Texas A&M, NC State saying, hey, you know what? They don't even consider us their biggest rival anyway. Let's go on over to the SEC and join in on the party over here. And every once in a while, they're decent at football.
Yeah.
every once in a while.
When they have what's his name from the Seahawks?
Oh,
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson. I forgot about that because
Mhm.
he went
to Wisconsin over us because they had
Yep.
the offensive line.
You're right. That was what could have been, right?
Yeah. Man.
I wish they would have brought Ohio State to the SEC.
Yeah, no.
No,
We got to deal with Bama fans. I don't want to deal with Ohio State fans.
I'm good with that. That's a no for me, dog. That's a no.
Yeah. I already have to deal with a bunch of buddies that are like that.
Let's see. How does the conference expansion affect TV time slots? Will certain teams in the SEC, not be seen as much as they used to be? I doubt it. Personally, they know that SEC makes money, so they'll keep pushing them into time slots. Now, what this means, do you get the SEC alternate channel, Tyler?
I do on like the ESPN Plus or the app.
But every once in a while, they'll throw it over to that, like when they have like a time difference, like a game's running over one, they'll go over to that. It's called SEC alternate one. I don't get it anymore, so it's very frustrating when that happens. And so I miss 10 minutes of the game because of Rutgers had the audacity to go over their game that nobody cares about. So you could see some of that. Sorry, I got a little. At least you know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Let's see here. NC State has two great quarterbacks in the Phillip Rivers. Yes. Did you know that Phillip Rivers wanted to come to Auburn? A lot of people forget that.
So cool story. He went to Athens in North Alabama. My dad actually was the defense coordinator when he was in high school. They beat John Carroll 14-13. I was the ball boy for that game. It was devastating. But I got to see him play in high school when I was a kid. Don't remember anything but the scoreboard, but yeah.
Joe, if you want to call in, I just saw he posted, and he's a channel member too. I have posted in the chat again the link. Feel free to do that. We'll take your call if you want to. We got not too much longer left on the show here, but you can do that if you like that. Yeah, he's from Alabama, and Phillip, from what I understand, is a pretty good dude too. So he would have been one of those guys that was a good quarterback. Kind of proud to have him represent us. So I hate it never worked out that we didn't have him as part of the Auburn family here. All right, why don't we do this while we wait and see if anybody's going to call in? I want to give you an opportunity, Tyler. Tell us a little bit more about your business and tell us where they can find all your stuff at, and just share a little bit about what you kind of got going on.
All right. So, like I said in the beginning, so my name is Tyler Rowland. So I run a waterfowl call company. We manufacture acrylic and wooden duck calls or mallard hen calls. Also, we do wood duck calls. So I know they're prevalent in the Southeast. But basically what we have done is we've taken every duck call out there and we have made something that is extremely rare and they don't freeze. Basically, we have done tests that I've dunked them in water and they work the same. I've been in 2-degree weather and they're frozen solid and they still work. And so they're acrylic and exotic wood calls. You can find us and find the calls on our website, cottontopoutdoors.com, or look us up on Facebook, Cotton Top Outdoors, and Instagram, the same thing, Cotton Top Outdoors.
Awesome. And I'm gonna embarrass you a little bit, but you got one there with you.
Yes, I do. I got
flash that up
look,
on screen.
I'm telling you, I got a bunch. If I can find my camera, so hang on.
Yeah, flash one up on screen so they can see what that's like. I know out of all the people watching out here, you got to have some hunters. Now, I'll be honest with you, Tyler. I am not a big hunter, but that's not because I don't like it. It's because I don't have the patience for it.
Well, so I grew up deer hunting and turkey hunting and dove hunting, and duck hunting was very rare in Alabama.
Yeah.
And it got big after the Robinsons and Duck Dynasty, and so. I tell people I make duck calls like, oh, you're gonna be the next Duck Dynasty. I was like, I hope not. I don't want to have my own TV show, but I appreciate it. So it is the excitement of turkey hunting, and you don't have to be as still. So you're like, unless ducks are coming in, and so it's like being a shooting house or being dove hunting. And I mean, they're coming from all angles. It's exciting, but it is it's an expensive sport when you throw in everything that you need to get. And there are people that spend a ton of money on it. But once you get going on it, I buy stuff every year, just like here and there. And I think my wife gets on to me every day because the amount of duck decoys I have. If I bring another box home, I think she might just like throw them all in the trash. They're worse than Legos. But yeah, so we make wood call. So this is a burnt hedge style call, and so I take hedgewood or Osage orange or Bodark.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the one without burnt. So it's kind of like a yellow tint, and the longer it stays outside, the darker it gets. And so I take a torch and I burn it. And then we have other woods. And then we have the acrylic. It's basically just a really extremely hard plastic.
Yeah.
And so, and what I've done along with making the call that just doesn't freeze at all, is I've actually taken, if you ever deer hunted, you ever bow hunted, you see how an arrow fits into a bowstring and how that knot of the arrow fits in there. So I reverse engineered it to where that knot fits in this little hole in the tone board, and it sits, so you don't have to hold your reed. So when I put it in, it just sits, and you don't have to hold it.
Look at that, snazzy.
Yeah. So, and Neil, I'll give you a demo. It's loud now. So I'm gonna tell you right now, I might make my neighbors loud or mad.
I'm gonna ease back on my headphones.
Yeah, let me back my camera up real quick. Here, I'll put my headphones down so you can hear it.
Oh boy, here we go. This is not gonna go well. There it is. That wasn't as loud. I mean, it was loud, but it wasn't like gonna hurt my ears.
That's why I put my thing down. So yeah, so I grew up a little about how I got started in it. I grew up woodworking with my granddaddy. He was a carpenter in Alabama. So like Houston Hills and that side of the town, he helped build it. And so I grew up making little wooden box cars, and I learned everything, built my own tree house and everything. And then it's kind of a sad story of how I got started. But his wife passed away, and then 10 days later, my grandfather passed away. And something that was laid on my heart the whole time was legacy. What am I leaving for my kids? Like, I'm just in the Army. Like, what am I doing? And so I've always loved the outdoor business. I loved everything about it. I said, well, what can I do? I love woodworking. Let me try it. I want to do something. And so now I'm actually trying to do it full time for the first time in 3 years. I mean, my last appointment, I was gone 9 months, having to close everything down, ready to go. So, and Neil, thanks. So, but it's fun. Everything's handmade except for the engraving. I'm not going to do that. I don't have that steady. I can do IVs and all that when I was in the Army, but I did not have that steady of hand. All right. But everything except the engraving, the reeds are all handmade.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing a little bit about that. I hope they'll go check you out. Obviously, the Auburn family members are very loyal, and I hope you'll be loyal to another Auburn family member and support him and his ventures out there. With the time we have left, let's rapid fire do some of this stuff. So you all get your comments, questions, derogatory rebuttals in right now. Rebuttals, I guess we don't technically get those, but who knows? We may get them someday. Brett Favre turned down Auburn. Can you imagine?
Nowhere.
Is that just conjecture though, Neil? I don't know if that. Maybe you're aware of something I'm not. I mean, I feel like everybody's thoughts this particular player was going to come to Auburn. I mean, I remember. Do you remember Lake Seastrunk? He was this highly touted running back that ended up going to Oregon, and he followed LaMichael James after the championship season and all that kind of stuff. And I remember my dad like just watching his highlights on like the recruiting sites all the time, and everybody was convinced that he was coming. I don't even know if he actually even considered us. That's what that kind of feels like to me personally. Let's see. Rob asked, what's your website again, just to remind him?
It's cottontopoutdoors.com. So I tried to put it in the chat, but I don't know if it worked.
Yeah, if it doesn't, I'll get something posted in the description
Yeah,
for you.
it's in our private.
Here, actually,
yeah.
we're going to do that right now. I'll fix that for you. And here is the website coming in. Well, always figuring out this new system is a little bit of a challenge. There we go. That should do it right there. There's the website that you can go check out. Cam's got a good question, and I think this is maybe a good one to kind of round out most of the discussion on. Tyler Rowland, what do you consider a successful year for Auburn football?
Ooh. I mean, I think we should be 10 wins every year, at least. But we are, and the reason why I say that is because, I mean, you know, we're top 3 in the West.
Mm-hmm.
At least I consider us top 3, you know, neck and neck with LSU every year. A&M is now we're top 4 because of them and what Jimbo has been able to do. Brian Harrison's first year, I think if you see a 9-3 season, it's awesome.
Right.
You know, I think we have a chance to shock some people with the mentality he's brought, which I love. I mean, I'm super excited about him. But every year, I think we should be 10-2, you know, 11-2 with the bowl win. Because I mean, it's Auburn. You know, we messed it up by 2010 championship, 2013 runner-up. Like now it's like, all right, and then you bring in the Alabama competing every year for the CFP. Like, all right, you got to compete. Like it needs to come down to you either win against you know, neck and neck with Alabama, LSU, and Georgia every year, and you got to have a shot. If we don't have a shot, then
yeah. And I've said this again. One of the things we talked about a lot here. My prediction for the year is 8-5 with a bowl loss, and I'm being cautiously cautious. I'm trying to save myself the disappointment, not because I think we're going to happen, but there's just so much we don't know.
You're right.
The thing with the Malzahn Chizik transition, his players were still there.
Mm-hmm.
Malzahn's players, who was recruited, are still here, and it's basically them. So how that translates to Coach Harson's offense and defense and his staff's schemes, I don't know. Will it probably shock us in a good way at some point throughout the season? I think so. Will it disappoint us? At some times, I think so too. I do think that at some point, every other year, at minimum, you should be hitting 10 wins at minimum. So let me ask you this question in lieu of that, or in addition to that. What do you need to see happen in, say, 5 years for you to say that Coach Harsin is still on the right track? What would you be not least satisfied? Well, what's the least he has to do to, at 5 years, you say, I'm good, let's keep going?
You know, I mean, if we got to be, you know, like I said, 9-10 wins, you know, I mean, even every other year is fine. One of the things that I think this year, why I'm so high on it, is that I've always had a feeling that the guys that Malzahn got weren't bad, and for any scheme, any system, they just needed somebody to kind of put a fire under you know what. And so with the mentality brought in, I think we can get, like, you know, even if it's 8-5, I'm okay with it, you know, or, you know, 9-4. So you go, you know, 8-4, and then you get a bowl win.
Right.
But as long as we're on the right track to where we're competing every year, and I mean, and that was the big thing with Malzahn that I just did not like, is that you could see the times where we just weren't competing. Mm-hmm. You know, we weren't in it, or we weren't there, or we'll just go out there and have a perfect scheme, and then boom, we just shut it down. And that made me mad more than anything, because I don't want to see that. I don't care if we score 100 points on somebody. Who cares about, you know, respect or respecting the game? Like, yeah, you got to line up and hit somebody every play. But you know, it's like Neil said. I mean, 5 years we got to be competing for championships. You know, and it's not just, and I I don't like saying SEC championship, because if you compete for this CFP and go to the playoff, then you win the SEC. Yeah, and I don't want to get caught up like and Auburn fans kind of do get caught up in just Alabama, just the SEC, and we get in that box, and it's like, all right, we need to look higher, and I think we can with Harsin, with Coach Harsin at the helm, and but yeah, and in 5 years we gotta steadily. It has to be a steady increase, or if we do plateau at 10 and we have an 11, I mean, because this guy came from Boise and he's 10 wins every year, compete for championships every year, and so he has that mentality.
Well, the mentality obviously will be different. Will it be the thing that fixes Auburn? Only time will tell. Things look good right now; they feel good, and obviously with any new restart, there's a kind of a rejuvenation in some sense of the word, whether it be excitement about something new. We'll see. We will definitely see. And I'm hopeful, and I anticipate, like I said, 8-5 is what I'm predicting right now, just being the Pollyanna what do they call it? Sunshine pumper that I am. I'll probably, by the time we say hike on the first play, I'll be predicting a 10-win season myself. But right now, that's where I have to start at, just to protect my little heart, because this 34 years of following this program, but also all other sports. I mean, I've seen some things, man.
Yeah, I know. And I think the reason why I am so high on it is like what Neil just said, is he's like a drill sergeant, and he's not as, I mean, on the camera, he's not as bad. And I think it's kind of coming from my old industry. It's kind of watered down now, but he does have that mentality, and that's why I like him so much, because he's like me. He's doesn't care. Like when he's with his team, it's no blind. Like, I mean, just truth and full head of steam type thing. So, and we needed that. We needed that a lot.
Final question, and you tell me if this is if I took it too far with this. Is Brian Harsin Nick Saban with a personality? Is that too far?
I don't know. We'll see. He's got to win about 5-6 championships before we get there.
Take winning off the table. Like, I'm just talking about the what you see from the guy. I get that type of feel. He don't care, but he'll actually smile at you.
Well, when he smiles, for me, it's just like, what is up your sleeve right now? You have some, like, because when he smirks, it's not even a smile; it's a smirk, and my brain goes to, what are you thinking about? Because I want to know what's going through your brain right now, because you have some smart comment that you want to say, but you can't. Because and I love that. Maybe we'll see.
Well, only time will tell about a lot of things. Tyler, we'll have to get you back on some other time to hang out with us a little bit. But I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us and just letting us get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course, absolutely. As a reminder, guys, as we close out tonight, if you're heading off to War Rapport, who comes up next on YouTube, please tell them we said hello. Send them a War Eagle our way, or their way, I guess. And check out the description links down there for ways you can help support our content here on this YouTube channel, our podcast, everything in between. Channels, you can be a channel supporter, a Booster Club member, PayPal, TeePublic. There's TeePublic sales going. I should have worn my T-shirt today. This is not my T-shirt, but I should have wore our logo designed to show you guys. They're awesome T-shirts. Sales on right now. Thank you guys so much for being here. Smash that like button on the way out. We'll be back again next Wednesday to hang out and talk some Auburn football, basketball, everything in between. Until then, War Eagle.